This is CityCast Twin Cities. I'm Sean McPherson, and here's what the cities are talking about. Tane, with a name as cool as Tane, I don't feel like you should get a nickname, but have you ever had one?
I have not, and I have strong feelings about nicknames.
You have to give me your 1 second summary of your strong feelings about nicknames.
Sorry. Well, it requires reading East of Eden, so I can't do it in 1 second. The point is,
hard pass.
I don't have a nickname. That's good.
All right. Adam, do you have a simpler answer to the question? Have you ever had a frequently used nickname?
No, not a similar answer. When I was little, my parents called me Beast, which I always just thought was like normal and cool. And then they got kind of chewed out by a summer camp counselor because they were like, how can you call your child a beast? He's a sweet boy. And my parents were like, I don't know. He's insane. Like, what do you want?
Beast, that is so unreasonable. I'm sorry you went through that, Beast. That's terrible. We are talking with Tane Danger, trusted keynote speaker and CityCast contributor and producer Adam Sage. All right, it is budget time in the Twin Cities, budget time in Minnesota, and probably budget time for your household as well. Now, these city budgets can have an impact on your personal budget, but they can also impact your life in other ways. What services does your city provide? Is that fire department coming in 20 minutes, or are they coming in 2 hours? But when a new budget is approved, a lot of time the news outlets just focus on the costs for taxpayers and then mention what those costs are going towards. But I do want to flip that. Tane, what are St. Paul residents getting out of this newly approved 2026 budget for St. Paul?
They are getting a whole bunch of things that were going to be cut, not necessarily cut. Exciting. So 2026 budget restores funding to a bunch of services. So there was a proposal for libraries and rec centers to be pulled back. Those are largely going to full hours and staffing. Additional funding in neighborhood programming. I think one of the big ones is on fire and emergency response, that there was money that was going to be taken out of firefighters for 3 positions, including deputy fire chief. Seems important. You want a deputy fire chief, but that money got put back in. So that is all there. And they are setting aside $300,000 for immigrant support, legal and naturalization efforts in 2026, which is the largest amount ever for the support for immigrant legal costs, which is important stuff that obviously is in the news a lot right now and is something St. Paul is working on for next year.
So the big headline, you're not having less firefighters and we're supporting immigrant neighbors. Seems pretty cool. How's the city paying for all of that?
So if you live in St. Paul, which Sean does, if you are a median St. Paul resident, which Sean, I'm never going to call you a median St. Paul resident. You are far above the median. Yes. But if you were a median household in St. Paul, you are going to see a 5.3% increase, or about $107 more on your property taxes. That's on a house of about $290,000. But then there's also going to be increased charges on water and sewer, which is all going to come to like around an extra $232 for median value home. And then the city is going to do the thing which cities and companies do, which is they're not going to fire people, but they're just going to like allow attrition, people who were going to walk away from their jobs, and they're just not going to rehire some of those in order to save money.
Favorite strategy as a worker who's often had to just pick up all the responsibilities of someone else for no extra pay.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
But Sean, as our spectacular non-median St. Paul resident, how do you feel about this stuff?
I am starting to worry about these property tax increases, and I'm starting to, when you say like, oh, an extra $232, it doesn't seem like a huge amount of money, but the property taxes are already really high. And Tane and Adam, have you ever heard this theory about why St. Paul has to lean really hard on property tax increases, which is the prevalence of nonprofits in locations where they aren't paying property taxes? And if they were paying property taxes, it would really fund the city. Are you aware of this, Tane?
Yeah. So if you think about St. Paul, you've got a ton of government buildings, both city and county government, but then also obviously state government buildings. You've got multiple universities, which are nonprofits, and colleges that don't pay taxes. And then you have a whole batch of nonprofits and things like that don't pay taxes. I actually remember a number of years ago, I think going back under the Mayor Coleman's administration, maybe it was early Mayor Carter, there was a proposal where they just were going to ask those nonprofits, like, well, technically you don't have to pay property taxes, but what if you just chipped in? What if you just did it anyway? That could really help, please.
This must have been from that era when people didn't realize that a lot of nonprofits are just as bloodsucking as a lot of corporations, in the sense that they just go, we're still not going to, it doesn't fill our mission to voluntarily give up some of our money. We're going to keep on focused on our mission. And I can't exactly slight them for that. But yeah, usually just asking people to pay money doesn't work. I am really glad that these services are going to stay available. I think, like a lot of folks, I love my libraries every week, but I really hope the handful of times I have to call the fire department, I hope they come promptly and with well-trained people. And as I understand, a deputy fire chief means that when main fire chief goes on vacation, there's still a person who's like answering the walkie-talkie. Let's keep that going. So I appreciate the services, but I do at this point, Adam, think we need more levers to pull than just property tax increases. And a lot of St. Paul residents feel like that's the only lever they're pulling. And I am becoming one of those residents.
And there are two other things I would say that are in this budget that are starting to try and answer that, and how effective they will be is an open question. So one that's got a lot of attention and talked about is there is, I think, approximately $5 million in this budget for downtown revitalization efforts, and specifically trying to do some conversions, switching office buildings in downtown St. Paul to apartments, condos, residential generally. So is that part of like a seeding St. Paul's downtown to be a tax revenue generator in a way where it just really is not right now, because none of those empty offices are paying very much in property taxes. And then, so that one seems good. I don't know how far $5 million gets you, but it's something. Mm-hmm. I think that the second one, which I didn't mention at the top because I honestly don't know exactly how much this really matters, is that there's increased money for parking enforcement.
That sounds like something that would just return money back.
Well, that's why I didn't mention it. It's like when I read about this, they were like, well, we're going to hire some more people to do parking enforcement. Hopefully the increased parking enforcement will pay for those people. And I'm like,
yeah, hopefully that's a pretty clear cost benefit thing.
Yeah.
This would be the first three people who have ever done parking enforcement in St. Paul. Listen, I'm just letting you know, park where you want. You're not getting a ticket. So this may be one of those things where they have to play catch up, and they just don't know what it's like to have people actually give out parking tickets. I see them drive by because they don't have as nice cars as the cops. The cops have SUVs, and these folks are driving like, I don't know, like Eagle Talons or something. I've never gotten a parking ticket in St. Paul, and I've parked illegally mucho times.
We should have a special guest on CityCast, the first person to get a parking ticket in St. Paul, and interview them about what that was like and whether they will start parking elsewhere. So yeah, there's a few other things in there. And obviously this is like an interesting budget to pass because this budget was passed unanimously and the mayor is supportive of it. But we have a new mayor coming in. And so the new mayor is going to inherit this budget. And some of these things are things she has talked about, the parking enforcement, the downtown revitalization. But I always think it's a little funny, like, okay, you're passing this budget and we're going to have a new mayor in 3.5 weeks.
One big question that I have is when the headline is mainly services not getting cut, hooray, I just don't understand why that necessitates property tax increases in terms of like you're paying a larger percentage of the value of your property. And I get that wages go up for folks. Inflation is a factor. But you would think just rising property values with inflation, if your house is suddenly worth more money, you have to pay more in property taxes when you get a new evaluation on it. So I don't understand why you also need to increase the percentage when it doesn't sound like there's a huge increase in services. I feel like an old fart right now, but
no, I feel like you are a very common fart right now. I think that you are not dissimilar to what a lot of people are thinking about with this. But a part of this is the loss of a commercial tax base, especially in a place like downtown St. Paul. again, every time you see a giant office building and you see like one light on in that office building, you should be thinking about, wow, that's going to cause my property taxes to go up. Because that means that real estate for that commercial property is going to be valued at a lot less, and then it's going to get taxed at less, and somebody's got to pick up that bill. And if it's not going to be the businesses, it is going to be the homeowners.
I don't feel great about St. Paul. I started off feeling really great about St. Paul, but I might be comforted by knowing that Minneapolis is lagging behind, and whatever sort of great new piece that Mayor Fry was ironing out with the city council seems to have already fizzled in just the month and a half since the election. How is Minneapolis doing on their budget, Tane?
So you should feel the idea that St. Paul passed its budget unanimously on the city council. If that happens. Yeah, if that happens in Minneapolis, you will need smelling salts for me before the next episode. So as context, the last Minneapolis City Council budget battle had a record number of amendments that the city council put onto the mayor's budget. The mayor eventually ended up vetoing the last budget, and then the city council overrode the mayor. So we're just getting started in Minneapolis. The mayor has proposed a budget, and now we are in a place where there is a process that the city council will go through, and they will undoubtedly propose a whole batch of amendments that will get voted up and voted down, and they will eventually have to try and come to somewhere. And I don't know whether they want the mayor to approve it or not, because I think that there are parts of this where the city council and the mayor enjoy the fight to some degree with each other. And there's parts that there are certain city council members who are proposing that would just slash the mayor's office, which I very much doubt that the mayor will be supportive of.
I saw that. Apparently, one of the proposals on the table would gut the budget for the mayor's office by 44%.
Right. So imagine being the mayor who just is like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't need about half my staff. Get lost.
St. Paul would like to welcome our new parking enforcement officer, Jacob Fry. He's picking up a second job. He's writing out tickets on 5th Street, just making ends meet.
So it's going to be, and again, as I was saying with St. Paul, you got a new mayor coming in St. Paul. You got 4 new city council members coming in Minneapolis, but not until next year. So the outgoing city council is the one that will be amending and voting on this budget in Minneapolis. It's going to be interesting. And we could probably have a whole episode maybe next week or sometime about what some of those fights are. There's bathrooms on Nicollet Mall. There's funding for a whole variety of different programs and neighborhoods and things like that. I do not expect to just, as I did today, where I just sort of woke up and, oh, look, St. Paul passed the budget and it's signed. I do not expect that to be the Minneapolis story.
No, sir. Buckle up and stay tuned.
We do want to hear from you. What do you think about these budgets? Do you think they're interesting, as Tane called them, or are you worried that they're going to wreak some havoc in your life? Give us a call on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline or send us a text, 612-217-0637. You might hear those comments in an upcoming episode. There's more news to discuss, including some great Twin Cities wins. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. I am the king of last-minute shopping. Sometimes you don't know exactly what you're going to do, and you're running out of ideas, and this is really where Aura Frames can come in. I got this for my parents down in Florida a couple years ago, and it solves a lot of problems. I don't know what to get for my parents. Usually if there's stuff they want, they just buy it. So this is something that's a little special because you can stuff it with your own photos, family photos, and you can keep on getting those photos into that Aura frame even after it's dropped off. You download the Aura app, you connect it to Wi-Fi, and you can keep on adding it when you're on your vacation and your parents are bugging you to send pictures. Boom, it's one click. Now, for a limited time, you can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com, and you'll get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver Matte frames. The promo code you want to use is CityCast at checkout. That's AURA frames.com with the promo code CityCast. Terms and conditions apply. Chicken Sparcariello. It is time to talk to Sally Swift, the co-creator and managing producer of The Splendid Table. Sally, I had a lot of fun being on the front page of The Splendid Table's website. Can I give you a couple more intros before we actually get into this conversation? Is that all right with you?
Absolutely. Please do.
Zatar Manakesh. We've got Sally Swift from The Splendid Table on the line. Swift is the co-creator and managing producer of The Splendid Table. Sally, I can tell you want one more. Here it is. Well, chocolate ganache and raspberry tart, it is time to chat with Sally Swift from The Splendid Table. Sally, I'm sure you would have cut something that pedestrian from The Splendid Table, and that is because The Splendid Table is an incredibly well-produced show, and we have you to thank for that. As we mentioned, you are the co-creator and the managing producer of this juggernaut of a media empire, and you are turning 30 years old as a show. So first off, huge congratulations to you, Sally Swift. Well done.
Thank you. Wow. We've never been called juggernaut before. I love that. I'll take it. What a way to start a Thursday.
Throw it in the pull quotes, my friend. It is not an understatement to say that The Splendid Table has changed how I relate to cuisine, to cooking, and frankly, to the world in general because of my years as a listener to The Splendid Table. And of course, I'm not alone. This is an award-winning show that connects with thousands of listeners each week. And tonight, you're celebrating at the Fitzgerald Theater. Francis Lamb, who is a splendid host, a splendid host of The Splendid Table, is handling the hosting. Sean Sherman from Owamni is going to be there. Karen Tomlinson from Muriel. Jamal Hashi, Diane Mua from Diane's Place, and Lamar is doing the music. Very awesome. And CityCast, very honored to be a sponsor for this event. Sally, get ready to blush again. I'm going to call you a juggernaut. You've built The Splendid Table into a juggernaut, yet you remain vital 30 years in. It's not one of those things where people go, yeah, they've lost their shine, they've lost a step. How did you build it into this force, and how do you keep it this excellent?
Oh, man, that is a question. And I'm not sure I have an answer. I think that we are such a small team. We have been very lean. We have managed to dodge a lot. So, Lynn and Francis are very, very different people. And we really, I feel like we worked really hard to make sure that we really understood who they were and kept them along, It's simple. We're small. Food is really important. I was thinking because we're doing the show at the Fitz on Friday and about some of my favorite moments. And absolutely one of my favorite one was when we did the first show in COVID that we did. And all of a sudden everyone was cooking who you had to cook, right? It felt like such an important thing to be able to help people with. And we had I'll never forget, we had Kenji Lopez Alton, and he was talking to us about the realities of this virus. Do we need to wash our groceries? Don't we need to wash our groceries? What's the science behind it? And it was just a really wonderfully intimate, simple thing to do on the phone, recording on the phone. And we've just kind of stuck with it. It's been great. Food's relevant. Food is the safe place for us to talk in this world. And we understand cultures through it. And, you spread the love when you eat and talk and eat.
Can I ask you the intimacy that you talk about? I imagine a lot of people, when they first think about doing some sort of cooking, food-related thing, they would be like, well, you have to be able to see the thing, but as fans like me of The Splendid Table, no, the image in your mind is so much more. But can you talk about how you think about that intimacy of what the radio does, actually in a way that maybe video can't?
Yeah, it's funny because when we started the show, first of all, Lynn and I didn't want to do a cooking show. That wasn't what I wanted to do. And she had just written, I know. I wanted to do a show about the culture, right? And the science and like the deeper things. And Lynn had written this book, The Splendid Table, which is about this one region in Italy, Emilia Romagna. And I loved it. And I didn't know her. I cold called her to say, would you be interested in doing like a pilot for a food show? And she was very wary of me because she had just won these awards and she was like top of the game. She'd won the first person to ever win both the James Beard and the International Association of Culinary Professionals Award. And we started talking and I could see the moment when she was like, oh no, she gets what I want to do. Because neither one of us, we weren't going to cook on the radio. That was not going to happen. That wasn't what it was about. And we had to explain that a lot because the program directors 30 years ago were for the most part male. It was a different, 30 years is a while ago. It was a different world. Lynn, with that absolutely spectacular sex kitten voice, right? I mean, she could talk about anything.
I totally agree with you. I would never have used that term,
Right?
but I'm glad that it is on the record now.
100%. I used to say that we could fund the show with phone sex, should we ever need to. With,
Which, Minnesota Public Radio, 8 p.m. Why you haven't cashed in on this?
I know we've messed up on that. So she is someone who describes food and salivates. Like you can't beat that. She really understands and has a wonderful vocabulary and is incredibly curious. And that part was easy, actually. It didn't feel forced. We danced around video. People wanted to do a bunch of stuff with us. It was never gonna be as resonant as radio is for us and podcasting.
I have an idea about why I respect the Splendid Table so much, and I wanted to run it by you, Sally, which is that anything that needs to be complicated is complicated, and anything that can be simple is simple. And you are one of the few people and entities in the food world where I trust, where I go, if I have to go to a special market for this, I really do. It is necessary to make this thing the right way or to enjoy this. And if I can pull it off with what's in my fridge, they'll tell me that as well. Mm-hmm. You guys have a true, honest approach to the complexities of food and cooking that I think it took somebody who thought I didn't belong in this community and made me feel like I could be a part of it. Is that in the secret sauce, or is that something I'm picking up on?
No, I think you're right, Sean. We work really hard to do that. I mean, Lynn and Francis and I are foodies. I mean, I cook every day. I test recipes still all the time. And I've always been this way. I've always loved it. It was something I did before I started the show. I had dinner parties when I was like my first year in college. So super aware of how scary cooking is for people. And it is so important to me in my life and has changed my life in so many ways. I came from a really rough family life, and the table was my one safe space at home, weirdly. And I just feel like knowing how to cook and not be afraid of it, it can be like if you could cook 2 things that you know how to cook, and that's all you really need, to be able to have a meal that you can cook for someone that you love and be confident in it is like a gift. And I really, really believe that. And, it's still so incredibly important to me that people feel comfort and some kind of fluidity in the kitchen. Like I know my kids are good when they're cooking. I know they're healthy. I know they're thinking about their mental health. They are, there is a respect that you show yourself when you cook yourself something.
Sally, it's important to me that the Splendid Table came out of the Twin Cities. And of course, we have a wonderful food scene here. As somebody who's been connected to the Twin Cities for your whole life, I know now you're out, not in the Twin Cities. What do you think is special about the food scene here in the Twin Cities?
Well, I will tell you, I live in the D.C. area now, and there is no bread there like there is here. It is just kind of amazing. I don't know if you've been to the bakery that's opened on Grand Avenue, Razava.
Oh, the place with the greatest sesame bagels in the entire universe? Yeah.
The most beautiful bread. It's sourdough based. I tasted 4 different things. Everything is just spectacular. I mean, the idea that something like that, and we have so many bakeries here. I mean, it started with Rustica all those years ago. Diane Moa. I mean, there are a lot of really, really great bakers here. I also really miss the farmers markets. I mean, the farmers markets in D.C., you're paying $40 a pound for tomatoes. And it's because of land prices. I mean, that's the reality of it all. So the food scene here is amazing in so many ways.
Sally, I wanted to ask, one thing I really enjoy about the food scene here is how important seasons are to the flavors I seek out.
Yes.
And for example, this weekend, I'm heading to Tori Ramen in St. Paul because whenever it's cold, that just tastes better than anything I can imagine. They're really creative ramens that they have there. As we're getting all the cold coming in, do you have any recommendations for good, cozy food spots in the Twin Cities?
Well, I don't get to eat here very often anymore. I'm not here anymore. So I'm headed to Hi tonight with my family.
Good pick.
Which will be wonderful. And that feels very appropriate flavors for the crunch, crunch, crunch that we are hearing when we're walking outside, which has become a novelty for me, which is kind of funny. I love Nixta. That is winter food. I mean, the cornmeal, all those chilies. I mean, I would absolutely send people there. I'd send people to Diane's place. There is a wealth of opportunity here. It's a great place.
The Splendid Table is celebrating 30 years tonight over at the Fitzgerald Theater with a who's who of great folks in the food world, both at the national level and right here in the Twin Cities. Sally, can I just give you a little personal gratitude before we send you on your way and wish you good luck tonight?
Oh, thank you.
I applied for some gig with the Splendid Table in 2010, and I politely did not get it. I actually got the proper amount of kind emails saying you didn't get it. But you agreed to take a 30-minute phone call with me after that situation. And I remember sitting at McNally Smith College of Music where I was working, and you were so patient. You made me feel like I was the only person in the universe.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And I effectively said, how can I get into Minnesota Public Radio? And you said, make special stuff happen. Don't hang around that building. Just get out there and be special and be noticed and work hard. And don't get into the inner politics. Just keep on grinding and make good stuff happen. And I took that advice to heart, and I've had a wonderful career, part of it at NPR. And I truly don't know that I would be on this path without how giving and supportive you were. You didn't have to do that, Sally. And you made me feel like you absolutely had to and you absolutely cared. And it made such a difference in my life. So thank you.
Oh, Sean, you have no idea how much that means to me. May I say the morning that I feel every Saturday night without having you on the air in my DC home. I mean, I'm still not over it.
You know what? We're going to work it out. I'll make you a special mix to celebrate 30 years of the Splendid Table. Sally Swift, congratulations on this incredible run. Here's to 30 more years. And thank you for all you've done for food in the Twin Cities and the world.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
On Fridays, we like to do some Twin Cities wins and celebrate some good things that are happening around the Twin Cities. And we've certainly given a lot of question marks to the leadership of Mayor Jacob Frey and Mayor Melvin Carter, especially when it comes to cooperating or not cooperating with federal immigration enforcement. But we did want to tip our hat to something that we think is a move in the right direction from Mayor Jacob Frey, which is that the city of Minneapolis has officially pledged to not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement actions targeting the Somali community. And Mayor Frey signed an executive order barring city-owned parking lots and other properties from being used to stage raids. And it's just very common to go, well, what can they do when the feds are coming in? How much power do they really wield? And in a short period of time after this crisis of ICE coming in with a target, particularly on our Somali community, came up, I just want to point out that Mayor Jacob Frey found something that the city of Minneapolis can do, and that I think will at least mean that stuff that is owned by the city of Minneapolis is not being used to stage raids. And I certainly consider that a Twin Cities win.
I like the idea that the new St. Paul parking enforcement people will come around to the ICE people and be like, you're not allowed to park here. Please move along.
Hey, Jack, do we have any tickets? Have we ever written a ticket? Grab one and give it to these folks from the federales.
But that does raise I agree it's a dub and I like to see it. But what do they do when ICE pulls into a parking lot? That's my question. I appreciate the effort, but will it be enforced? I still have questions.
I don't know the answer to that. I will just, as a short anecdote on this, once I asked former Minneapolis Mayor Betsy Hodges, what is the most surprising thing about being mayor? And she paused for a moment and she said that everything comes back to parking. And I feel like this is kind of the ultimate of that, where it could literally be a battle of federalism in Minneapolis-owned parking lots. And how that plays out, I don't know exactly.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Adam, let's turn our attention towards the herbivorous butcher, who have had a quite difficult past couple of years, but there's some wins to celebrate today.
There is a win for the herbivorous butcher. They were closed for a long time due to a catastrophic kitchen fire that they suffered. But they reopened recently, and today they're being featured on Guy Fieri's Triple D Nation, which, if you're unfamiliar, that's I guess his reboot of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. So that's the 3 Ds of the Triple D. But Fieri is going back to a lot of the restaurants that he featured on the show, which Herbivorous Butcher was featured in 2016. And he's headed back over today. So I don't know, maybe go try to take a selfie with those white spiky hairs on his head.
I just, you're getting really close to saying negative things about Guy Fieri, and I'm not going to have it. Beast, I'm not doing it today. Okay.
I don't have a negative opinion of the man. He's brought attention to some really lovely establishments.
Well, when you say white spiky hair, could you say luscious bleached locks or something like that?
I was actually like the word locks was floating around in my head, but I just didn't think it was accurate.
Tane, is any fruit news floating around in your head, my friend?
Wow. So U of M licensing new fruit varieties. I'm sure that's what we meant by that.
Absolutely.
The University of Minnesota, well-known cornucopia of fruit. So everybody knows about the Honeycrisp, beloved Honeycrisp.
Invented by the U of M.
Invented by the U of M. I interviewed the inventors of that once upon a time. They're very cool guys, but they're inventing new fruits all the time. And, it's just like anything. You got to keep coming up with new fruits. What are you doing for me lately? Like Honeycrisp, that's yesterday's news. So University of Minnesota is, they got 2 new apples, which coincidentally, Sean was asking about nicknames. These 2 apples, like, basically borrow Sean's nicknames. Big Flirt and Super Snap, And so and then there's also a seedless table grapes developed for northern climates, which I'm excited to try the new apples. I feel like I've been burned before by grapes people tell me are going to be great that you can grow in cold climates, and it just never works out. But Big Flirt, Super Snap, we're going to try them out.
And I believe Super Snap is listed as the sequel to the Honeycrisp. So that's Honeycrisp 2, Electric Boogaloo.
We've gone so deep into sequel culture that even fruits have sequels, which is a little disappointing. But frankly, Big Flirt is always up for a new apple. All right, I want to give a win to Georgia Fort, who has been a fixture in the world of journalism for years. She was on TV all the time. She's been on billboards. She's won a whole bunch of Midwest Emmys. But in the past, a little more than 3 years, she's turned a lot of her focus onto the east side of St. Paul and onto the next generation of journalists. So she runs this radio station called Power 104.7 that is not only a joy to listen to when you're on the east side of St. Paul, but they also throw a lot of great events. She runs Black Press, and her third organization is called Center for Broadcast Journalism. And she has teamed up with the National Association for Black Journalists, and not only teamed up, but actually put some money behind it to support this NABJ Minnesota Convention Scholarship, which is going to help Minnesota-based student journalists attend the 2026 National Association of Black Journalists Convention and the Career Fair in Atlanta, as well as the 2027 convention in Texas. A lot of times just getting to these events can be quite expensive, let alone actually handling the hotel fees and things when you get there. So to see that money come out of this young organization to bring young journalists from Minnesota to these special places where so many people land jobs and make those connections that are so important in this industry is a huge win. So congratulations to Georgia Fort and all she's doing in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really high impact because, like you said, just making those connections and knowing people is everything to getting jobs in journalism.
Yeah, and getting to go to one of these things and seeing the possibilities that are out there and imagining yourself like in those roles too is wildly transformational, especially as a young person first imagining what this career could look like for them.
It is so important to see the people doing the work and go, yep, okay, I can imagine myself doing this work as well. So yes, hats off to you, Georgia Fort. And honestly, thanks for getting some wins in the news because there's been a lot of stuff that's been really painful to talk about, really necessary to talk about. But to talk about a couple wins is putting me in a good spot as we move into the weekend.
Definitely a palate cleanser.
Right, which is the third apple that hasn't been released yet. is the University of Minnesota palate cleanser.
That's all for today here on CityCast Twin Cities. I'm your host, Sean McPherson. Tane Danger, Sally Swift, Adam Sage. We appreciate you being here today. Our executive producer is Anna Weigel. Our creative producers are Adam Sage and Tiffany Bowie. Our producers are Selena Saya Reynolds and Noah Snyderman. Our audience engagement manager is James Napoli. Post-production this week was done by Natalie Rivera, PJ Shahamat, Selena Saya Reynolds. I'm your host, Sean McPherson. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Our mailbag music is by our own Adam Sage. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast Twin Cities newsletter. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with the big flirts and sugar snaps in your life? Yeah. We'll see you back here Monday for more news from around the city.